Welcome to Armenia, Eleanor.
Thank you.
This is a beautiful part of the country. We are having a good trip to this region and we have fantastic programs here you're witnessing, which brings me to the question, what brought you to this line of work?
Thank you, Raffi, and it's fantastic to be back in Armenia and particularly in this incredible spring environment. So I've had a very blessed and very privileged career, and almost my entire working life I've been in the humanitarian and development area. And while I was at school, I knew I wanted to do this, but I didn't really understand what this was. And it was a time when I was probably about 15 years old. And one of the very well-known NGOs in my country came to my school and they got us to play a board game. And you were either red or blue. And it was about sustainable farming in Africa. And my team, we worked really, really hard, but we kept losing the board game. We weren't getting anywhere. The other team did absolutely nothing and kept winning. And I was getting so angry. And I even called over the facilitator and said, "This is broken, this is not working." And of course, at the end of the game, they explained that the red team were the women and the blue team were the men. And that this was all about justice, or rather injustice, and how often the people that work the hardest get the least reward in the world. And something clicked at that moment to me that the what was about fighting injustice in every single form, whether it was injustice of not being able to have a secure home, injustice about not accessing food, injustice about not having access to education. And that really has shaped my whole career.
Yeah, interesting. And you've had a long career, and it's been a while that you are with the Middle East and Eastern Europe region. And you've seen so many things in this region, so many experiences. As you once said it to us, new day, new crisis. Yeah. And what are the most powerful lessons and surprises that you've seen and experienced here in this region?
Thank you. So I've spent the last 5 years as the regional leader for this region, but I have had many relationships to the region for the last 25 years. And I think, first of all, my biggest lesson is how quickly a region or countries can change. Even 10 years ago, World Vision was questioning what our role was in the Middle East and Eastern European region. And then we had the Syria conflict. And then we had the Ukraine conflict. Then we've had the ongoing conflict in the occupied Palestinian territories. Then we had the move to self-funded offices. And we went from a region where we were struggling to find our identity in the World Vision Partnership to literally being the poster child of the partnership. And 6 out of 7 of the largest humanitarian crises in the world are happening in this region. So it was a very humbling lesson to understand that we should never take for granted environments that appear on the surface to be secure, to be developing, to be moving towards middle income, because life really can change in an instant.
Yeah, that's true. And you've been experiencing this for 25 years now. 25 years is a quarter of a century. Yeah. And this is a rare commitment. What keeps you going?
Well, it's 25 years in World Vision and it's longer in the whole aid industry. So thanks for reminding me about my mortality, Raffi. What keeps me in World Vision is that our Christian identity brings us together in a way that many of the secular organizations I've not seen happen. And I regularly refer to World Vision as a family. And that means that there's an awful lot of love and an awful lot of connection. And in the dark times, I have seen World Vision step up like nobody else. At the same time, there's some dysfunction There is some arguments, there are some normal family dynamics, but I genuinely know that amongst the World Vision staff and its volunteers and its donors, there is love and there's commitment, and even at that lowest time, we come together and we can see the future, and that's what keeps me at World Vision.
Yes, and you put it in a very good way, family. World Vision is a family, and at the heart of this family is integrity, accountability, compassion, the values that are at the heart of everything, basically. As a leader, what do these values mean to you, and how do they guide you?
The first thing that I try and hold on to in everything that I'm doing is hope and also love. And it is about having that hope and love for the people that we work with, the people that we serve, and most of all for the God that we serve. And that drives me every day. And I often, when I'm working with my team and they're working in incredibly difficult environments, and they often call me up and they've got something very, very big and hard on their heart. And the first thing I will say to them is just stop, breathe. Think about what the issues are. Let's break them down. Yes, these are the challenges, but what is the hope? And what can we do to support each other? And if we're supporting each other through that love, then anything is possible.
And that love and commitment, is that keeps you going? Is that keeps you grounded? What keeps you grounded? You said it's a hard job. It is. It is. The fact that we're witnessing so many tragedies and we are like firsthand, experiencing all these tragedies. What keeps you grounded?
I always say that I think you have to be an optimist to be in this line of work, because we're challenged every single day with some horrific examples of loss, hopelessness, destruction, and you've got to be able to find the good and the way forward. But sometimes it's incredibly hard, Raffi. Before COVID, I think all of us who've been in this work for a long time could look back at our careers and we could see a very positive legacy. Every poverty indicator was improving. Nutrition was improving, education levels, child protection was improving across the world. COVID ripped that carpet away, and we're now at a point where 90% of countries are seeing a decline in their sustainable development goals. And that's really challenging for us as professionals, because it says, what does that mean for us? But every day you've got to come back and say, okay, I cannot solve all these problems, but what can I do that makes a difference? And the thing that keeps me going is visits like we've been doing today. Being out in our programs, meeting our incredible staff who serve with such joy and such love, and meeting the communities, hearing their stories, and seeing the change in children. And that's what keeps me going every day.
Fantastic, yeah. And what keeps us going probably is also the availability of resources. And the resources are available because there is the culture of giving. And how have you seen this expressed in your work, the culture of giving? And what makes you think that it's gonna go on like that despite the craziness that we are witnessing all around us?
So what we need to remember that in any emergency, whether man-made, natural disaster, we as NGOs and the UN, we only ever serve 20% on average of the people in need. So said another way, 80% of those people in need are supported and served by their own local community, about the people within that country. And that's where giving and support really starts and ends. And so when there's a displacement, people open their doors, allow people to come and live with them. They bring food on the streets, they bring shelter. If there's an earthquake, the very first responders are people from that same community. And we should never ever forget that. We often focus on big money from international governments and donors. It's incredibly important. But without that unbelievable generosity of spirit, we would never serve everybody in need. At a global level, yes, things are changing and not for the better. The shift of governments towards funding defence, to dealing with local immigration issues, to dealing with the cost of domestic COVID, is meaning that there is less and less available for overseas development aid. But equally, we've been very blessed over the years, and we've got a huge amount of local capacity. We are trusted as an organisation. We have a global evidence base for the work that we do. So we are well positioned, and we keep needing to express the work that we do so we can continue to show our impact, grow our influence, and continue that income.
Thanks. That's very thoughtful and very interesting analysis of the situation. And you've been in this line of work for 25 years, as we talked about it a short while ago. Is there, and you've witnessed so many stories, with so many visits to so many different countries. Is there one story that you have kept in your heart and it shaped you as a leader, or it influenced you a lot as a leader?
I think it was early on in my career, and I was in the humanitarian response area. There had been a major conflict, and I was in a refugee camp with probably about 100,000 people, and it was right at the beginning of the response. So it was chaotic, and there was a need for everything from sanitation to food to water. We were working 20 hours a day. But in that environment, you very quickly move to logistics. Right, in the next hour, I need to build 20 latrines. I need to do this and do that. And it's very easy to lose sight of the individuals. So I was there, I was working unbelievably hard. I was very pleased with myself. I was doing all of this great work. And this woman walks up to me with a very, very sick baby and says to me, "What about my child?" And it stopped me in my tracks, because I'd lost sight of that one child and that one mother, because I was focused on the 100,000. And of course, I didn't have an answer for her, because we hadn't set up a clinic yet. We didn't have doctors there yet. I didn't have the food or the medicine right there. And I've carried that story with me for over 30 years. Because it moved me so much. And I think the thing that always drives me is, whatever my title is, however many hundreds of millions of dollars I'm responsible for, however many thousands of staff are under my care, at the end of the day, it's all about that one child. And if I can't answer that mother and look her in the eye and say, this is what we're going to do for your child, then I failed in my job.
Yes, and that reminds me of something a very dear friend of mine said, a tutor actually, said, you cannot change the world, but you can change one person's life, and in this case, one child's life, which is that's how it starts changing everything, with one person. Now you're in Armenia, and this visit comes in an interesting time, regional developments, conflicts, post-conflict trauma in the country. What are your impressions so far? How do you find it? What do you see in this country that makes it interesting to you?
Yeah. So I've been visiting Armenia for probably just over a decade. And it's been very interesting to see what has changed and what hasn't changed. So firstly, on the positive, I look at Yerevan. I mean, my goodness, what an incredible change in 10 years. It is a young, vibrant, dynamic city. It has everything going for it. Everyone you speak to in the street is looking forward, looking outwards, and is hopeful and engaged. But then you go to the rural areas, and my goodness, I think, so little has changed, and in many cases, particularly along the border, has gone backwards. Yeah. You and I know cases where World Vision was working for 10, 15 years, and then all of that was destroyed overnight in the various different conflicts in the last few years. So you go to those rural areas and the lack of equity between the urban and the rural is quite terrifying. And the lack of opportunity and hope for young people in the rural areas is really concerning. So on one hand, I'm very excited for Armenia, and I'm excited where the government is in their thinking around social protection, disability rights, etc. I'm excited about the opportunities I see in Yerevan, but I'm very, very concerned about the poverty levels and the lack of opportunity in rural areas. So I think that World Vision absolutely needs to be in Armenia. We need to continue to grow in Armenia and really ensure that every single child in this country has equal opportunities.
Thanks, Eleanor. I have some quick questions.
Okay.
And I want some quick answers.
Oh my goodness, okay, all right.
One word for Armenia.
Hopeful.
Most inspiring child you've met.
I would say a child in the center just now at Tavash who couldn't wait to tell me how excited they were about the project.
Your biggest motivation as a leader.
Opportunity for every child.
Key value for the world.
Empathy and compassion.
What keeps you hopeful?
My faith and the people I work with.
Leadership in one word.
Empathy.
What surprised you here?
The snow in the middle of June.
That's true. Yeah. Advice for future humanitarians.
Know what your principles are and stick to those principles regardless of whatever else is going on.
And the last question. Change starts with?
You.
Excellent. What is your final message?
I think my final message is that every one of us has an opportunity to make a change in somebody's life. And sometimes that change is small and sometimes that change is huge. But every one of us should move forward to make that change.
Thank you, Eleanor. This was such a wonderful conversation. Thanks.
Thank you, Raffi. Thank you very much.